When a system is forced to process a dozen erratic signals at once, it destabilizes. It doesn't matter how robust the core processor is, the sheer volume of competing inputs eventually forces a collapse. Highly capable professionals operate this way every day. We build and work in environments optimized for reactivity, keeping us constantly tethered to a flow of incoming demands. This creates a frustrating paradox. You can log 10 or 12 hours sitting at your desk and find that your actual cognitive output remains shallow. Most people assume this is a discipline problem, attributing their inability to focus to a failure of willpower. We often confuse high environmental stimulation with actual productivity. Having 4 communication channels open and rapidly switching between them feels like working hard, but the output tells a different story. Focus failure is a structural load management problem. To solve it, we have to define noise correctly. In a cognitive context, noise is any stream of incoming data or any low-grade threat to your attention. That includes a second monitor running a group chat, half listening to a stream, or the ambient worry that you might be missing an urgent message. Each of these inputs creates a landscape of endless exits. They offer your brain immediate off-ramps, pulling it away from the friction of deep processing. The core thesis of this approach is that deep work emerges when competing signals drop below a specific, strict threshold. Because of how modern digital workspaces are designed, we almost never hit that threshold by accident. It has to be engineered. Redesigning the environment addresses the limiting factor of focus directly. Human attention is an entirely selective mechanism. You only process a fraction of what happens around you at any given moment. This selection process operates as a zero-sum game within a finite resource pool. Think of this as your cognitive budget. Ignoring background noise is an active state. It requires continuous metabolic energy to filter out the environment. This is the cost of suppression. Every single input you have to actively filter out exacts a toll on your budget. Visual clutter on a desk, a side conversation, and lyrical music all incur this cost simultaneously, shrinking the bandwidth you have left to think. The mere possibility of an interruption drains the budget as much as an active distraction. Anticipating a text message costs the same as reading one. This mechanical reality of a shrinking biological budget is what sits underneath the frantic feeling of multitasking. This explains why using constant low-level audio or video as background company is often detrimental. While it feels comforting, that background noise actively steals the critical bandwidth required for hard analytical thinking. Willpower cannot override a biological budget limit once it is maxed out. When the budget is fully drained by environmental filtering, forming complex original thoughts becomes mechanically impossible. Every background element you tolerate is actively renting space in your cognitive budget and starving your primary task of necessary bandwidth. Deep cognitive thought is a fragile, complex structure that takes time to assemble. To hold that delicate structure together long enough to develop it, the brain requires uninterrupted processing time. This structure faces a specific threat during verbal or written work: semantic competition. The human brain cannot process 2 simultaneous streams of language. Writing a complex email while listening to a conversational podcast creates a mechanical bottleneck. Background lyrics or conversations directly collide with the internal monologue you require to complete the task. When semantic competition overwhelms the system, the fragile thought structure collapses. Rebuilding that structure after a collapse requires a disproportionate amount of recovery time. This is why mechanical, non-verbal tasks might tolerate background music, while analytical or language-based tasks cannot. Within this mechanical context, we have to redefine the concept of silence. Silence is the deliberate, engineered elimination of surprise in your environment. It is the strict elimination of semantic interference. Silence is a tool for systematically removing the specific types of data that directly compete with the architecture of complex thought. True silence is about environmental engineering, not isolation. Applying this requires designing a pocket of focus. Building this pocket involves systematically subtracting the environmental layers that drain the cognitive budget. Start with the phone. For finite blocks of time, physically remove the device from the room. This eliminates the anticipation of interruption cost. If it's not physically accessible, your brain stops allocating budget to monitor it. On your screen, apply a rule of collapsing your tabs down to a single visible task. This reduces visual clutter and mutes the ambient worry about other open projects, freeing up your cognitive resource pool. For audio, choose nonverbal masking or absolute silence for any language-based work to prevent semantic competition. The evidence is mixed on this, and some individuals genuinely require nonverbal masking noise, like white noise, to function. Masking noise aligns with the core principle of reducing surprise, even if it adds a baseline sensory input. Communicating focus blocks to colleagues or family also lowers the social load, so you aren't expending energy waiting for a knock on the door. The optimized end state is a protected space where the signal-to-noise ratio is maximized. Engineering this low-load environment allows your natural cognitive capacity to emerge. If you take one thing from this, try 30 minutes once this week with your phone in another room and only one thing on your screen. You're not optimizing your whole life. You're testing how much signal was hiding under the noise.